Okay, Abigail, have you given us the nod to go now?
We are now live, and just a quick note, since the stream did cut off, this is likely a new link for folks. So we are live and ready to go.
Thank you very much. So we go back to Senator Eklund's or Representative Eklund's comment about the water quality in Torrington, and Kevin was addressing that. Do we need to go forward with that, or Representative?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ron.
I'm not sure we got all of our commissioners back. Do you see all of them? Because I'm not seeing all of them.
I only see you and I and Rod and Mike.
Don't see Sheridan.
I'm also here.
There he is.
Oh yeah, there he is. Okay.
Sheridan's there.
You may not see all of them, but I believe, look through the list, that everybody's back on.
Great.
If you're not on, say something.
Okay. Ron, thanks for bringing that up so that we stay a quorum as we move forward. So we'll go back to Representative Eklund's question. Did that get resolved? And where do, Kevin, do we need to move any more on that?
I was a
Representative
little
Eklund,
off.
would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I'm a little off the beaten track with that, the water quality and then the systems upgrade. But just, I was curious if it can be done quickly, how this uranium or this water quality issue is being resolved.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the project recommendation was to build a treatment plant near Guernsey and a transmission line from that treatment plant all the way to Bridgeport, Nebraska would be the terminus of that project transmission. With the organization and the funding that's required, if it really does get off the ground, it's probably going to be 10 years before a project like that would be completed. Meanwhile, these communities are still treating the best they can, treating this the groundwater supplies they have. And I think we're ready for a motion.
Eklund, Kevin. Thank you. Would somebody be willing to make a motion on the Torrington Water Master Plan?
Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of the Torrington
Do we have a second?
Plan Level 1.
Second.
Sorry.
I move acceptance of the Torrington
Sorry, Rod.
Water Master Plan Level 1 project report is being complete, and further, the WWDC makes the following findings relative to this project. That the commission recommends proceeding to the next level of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
We
I
have a
second.
second.
I
Thank you.
second.
I'm sorry that there's a delay in the communication. I'll go a little bit slower so that we're okay. So it was moved by Commissioner Wagner and seconded by Commissioner Yankee. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay, or opposed, if any. Motion carries. Now, Kevin, it's back to you on the Salt Creek.
Mr. Chairman, that's Chase Tavelli, who's virtual, so go ahead, Chase.
Hey, Mr. Chair, thank you, everybody. I'm assuming you can all hear me. Great.
Yes.
Chase Tavelli, I'm a project manager with the Water Development Office. I'm here to present the closeout memo for the Salt Creek Edgerton Midwest Water Master Plan Level 1 study. The sponsor is the Salt Creek Joint Powers Board, which is made up of the towns of Midwest and Edgerton, north of Casper. The consultant was Morrison Merrily out of Cody, Wyoming. This was approved in the 2019 session with an appropriation of $160,000. The original contract amount was $159,900. The final contract amount is $149,196.08 for a contract savings of $10,103.92. This was your standard master plan study looking at the 45-mile, 8-inch transmission line from the Central Regional Water System, as well as looking at general infrastructure needs and non-infrastructure needs in both towns. The findings of the studies are summarized in the 2 tables in the closeout memo there in front of you. The first table is your structural improvements. Take note of item number 4, the replacement of 7 miles of the main transmission line. This is a portion of the pipe that is ductile iron and it's badly deteriorated with fairly regular needs for repair. The pipe is the sole source of supply for the town, so it's an extremely critical piece of infrastructure, of course. And you will see a recommendation for a level 3 study for that later today. The second table is non-structural improvements, looking at SCADA infrastructure to training of employees to exercising system pieces. So the thing that I find interesting about this is you have, 18 different recommendations, and only one of those is a Water Development Commission eligible for funding. So it kind of demonstrates the overall utility of our master plans and the usefulness to the sponsor beyond just getting financing from the Water Development Office or Water Development Commission, excuse me. We had a public presentation. There was no hearing for this because it's a level 1, but we did have a public presentation on June 17th, and that was held virtually, partially virtually. I was there virtually. There were a few of the townsfolk there in person. The WWDO recommendation is to advance the 7-mile transmission line project. The level 3 application has been received by the office, and a recommendation for a level 3 project will be presented at this meeting. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, are there any questions for Chase on this? Hearing none, would someone on that closeout?
Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of the Salt Creek Edgerton Midwest Water Master Plan Level 1 project report as being complete, and further, the WWDC makes the following findings relative to this project. 1, that the commission recommend proceeding to the next level of project development on submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
Second.
Chairman
Motion
Lancaster.
by
Oh, sorry, there you are.
Purcell. And a second by, help me out.
Commissioner Cayley.
Can you repeat that? This, the second is by who? Thank you.
He's too far away.
Seconded by Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, you're breaking up. Could you maybe sit a little closer to your microphone? I don't know if that's the issue or what, but we can't hear you.
It said his bandwidth he's losing his bandwidth.
Let me move to a different part of the house.
While you're doing that, Mr. Chairman, I'll try to help you out. It sounded like we had a motion and a second. And I think we're ready for a vote.
Question.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, I've just been notified that there's a technical glitch. We need to take a pause. So I think we can just hang on for a second and while they get it repaired.
Thank you. Is my voice any clearer?
Yes.
That's better, Mr. Lancaster.
Thank you.
Brandon, you need to get me appointed to sign documents if that's what you want to do.
You don't have any documents in the minutes.
Oh, well, Kaylee can come in and sign those.
Yeah, I could swing by the office today.
Ron, we sent most of the staff home. We might have to just give you a call when those are ready.
That works for me.
Are we waiting for Abigail to give us the go-ahead again?
Yeah, I believe it'll be either Abigail or Kayla will help us with that.
Okay.
But we're still functioning.
I'm unaware of the technical glitch. So as far as I know, we are ready to continue. Is someone getting the warning again?
I don't know. They're working here in our office on something. We'll find out what's going on.
So in that case, it'll just be whenever you're ready to continue, Director Gephardt. But in the meantime, we do continue to be live.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla, for all you do.
Mr. Chair, that is a nice recliner that you're setting in.
Thank you, it is. And I can look out the window and see the Salt River Range. And I can see Representative Simpson's house right down here in the valley. And it's a beautiful, clear day here, no wind.
Nice.
We were sure looking forward to the man cave man food experience.
Yeah, I stocked up with a lot of booze for Mr. Purcell, so I'm kidding, of course.
So
we'll get it next time.
We'll rain check it, and it was so kind of you to offer and host us.
We'll do it again.
All right.
There, you're unmuted. Now you can.
That's all right.
Is it okay to ask about Senator Geis? Does anybody know how he's doing?
Last I knew, he was doing well.
Good. we have new fiber internet coming our way. And as a matter of fact, it's just a week or two out to come to our house. For some reason, I can see the tower less than a half a mile away, but we just don't have the best bandwidth here.
I would just like everyone to know that Gerald Geis is now on the line.
Thanks, Riley. And Mr. Chairman, I got the news that we're good. We're ready for liftoff.
Okay. We welcome Senator Geis as we continue. We go to item 7 on the operating criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a product of a couple of meetings ago where we made some modifications to the small water program and the water development program operating criteria. We've gone through public comment. These are ready to be approved very quickly. If you remember the small water program criteria changes, we changed the application due date from January 1st to November 15th, and that's on page 3. And on page 4, we added the line, in case of limited funding for this program, the WWDC will prioritize the application according to project priority. So those were the only 2 changes of the small water program. And then of the water development program, we included language that essentially required a sponsor or applicant to our program be required to complete the irrigation and or water system survey prior to funding. That was something that we did in practice, but it wasn't in criteria, so we just formalized that. The other thing we did with that was created a deadline for submission of sponsor-derived feasibility studies prior to level 3 programs. And that's on page 12 of the criteria, that change. So those were the 2 changes. They went through public comment and we received no comments. So those are ready for your approval. And I will also add that at our last meeting, it was brought to our attention that we have some language in our operating criteria that doesn't coincide with statute and or chapter or title 99. And that is on page 13, paragraph D2CI. We'll wait for Julie to maybe catch up. So it's to establish a revolving fund to pay the costs associated with repair or maintenance or replacement. So that language changed through legislature that we're no longer allowed to do that. So if it's okay, I would make the recommendation that we go ahead and strike that language as kind of an administrative cleanup and then renumber the remainder of that paragraph. And because it's an administrative change and it's to basically coincide with legislation, I don't feel that we need to go out to public comment on that. So my recommendation would be just to allow us to change that, strike that language, make those changes and carry on. So with that, we do need an action item and a motion to accept that, to accept the changes that we've just discussed. And it's not statutorily required, but I believe it is mentioned in our criteria that Select Water also react and make the motion for that, to that same effect. I'll leave that up to Select Water Committee, but as far as the commission, we do need to make a change. Are there any questions to that?
Any discussion on the operating criteria?
Mr. Chairman, so basically you're suggesting we strike C, 2CI,
2CI or 2D?
2C.
2CI, yeah, it's under paragraph D, 2CI, that's correct.
Commissioner Purcell, you okay with this? You've kind of led
Yes,
it.
yes, I am.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion on small water program? Do we make a motion separately on these, Brandon?
Mr. Chairman, I would be fine if you just made a motion to accept all the changes to the criteria.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Wagner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Kaylee. Do we accept the operating criteria? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Hicks, do you guys want to move that? You're allowed to, but I don't know if it's necessary statutorily.
Director, I don't know if Senator Hicks is on.
I see him.
I see him, but it must be on mute.
No, I wasn't able to sit through the discussion, so if you guys are just doing operating criteria, it doesn't require approval of Select Water Committee.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Moving on to the next item.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is agenda item number 8, contingency account request. I do believe that we have some participants to this. If they're allowed in, I believe we have Mr. Dave Engels and Mr. John Kane. This request under tab K of the notebook is a contingency request for the Pioneer Cruise Canal piping project. This request is for $591,000 out of the account 2 sponsor contingency account. This would be a 67% grant, 33% loan. So the grant portion would be roughly $397,000. The loan portion would increase by $195,000. This project was authorized in 2014, and it was to install a pipeline and some energy dissipation structures to repair or to replace 2 eroding cuts or drops. Because of some landowner changes and issues with easements that prolong the project, but it also requires some realignment. So that has been completed. They recently bid the project. They were concerned about the budget, so they bid it as 2 schedules, one for drop 1 and one for drop 2. They received 5 bids. The range of bids was 1.1 million to 1.5 million, so very tight bids. I think it illustrates that the project is that value. So they did have enough funds to award one of the schedules, and I believe it was drop number 1 that they awarded. But they did not have the money for any contingency to that project, nor did they have the funding to award drop 2. So this request would provide some of the contingency for the drop 1 project and fully fund the drop 2 project. I'll just point out, we had this discussion yesterday. Prior to this application, the account 2 contingency balance was roughly $895,000. If this is approved for $591,000, the remaining contingency account would be roughly $304,000. And I don't know, Mr. Ingles or Mr. Kane, if you are online, if you have any comments or corrections to me.
Mr. Kane is on the line. He may be muted though, so Mr. Kane, if you could please unmute yourself.
And if you're on your phone, you need to hit *6.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
There you are. Thank you.
My name's John Kane, Chairman with the Piney Cruz Creek Ditch Company Irrigation District. No, we don't have any further comment for you at this point. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Kane? Hearing none, do we go ahead and make a motion, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Do we have someone that would make a motion on this Piney and Cruz Canal project?
This is Mark, so moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We've had a motion by Commissioner Cott, seconded by Commissioner Little. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kane. Good luck on your project. I believe we're ready to move to item 9, 2021 funding recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to share my screen very quickly and propose that we treat these kind of as blocks as we go through this and make a motion or recommendation for the entire block and kind of make the meeting more efficient, if that's okay. And then I'd also point out that we looked at these spreadsheets yesterday and they break the projects into the groups through a account as well as levels. We'll look at this very quickly, but what I would propose is that I will present the level 3 projects to you briefly to describe the project, as well as level 3 amendments. The level 1 and level 2 projects, as well as the UW water research. Well, the level 1 and level 2, they've all been fully discussed. We've gone through consultant selection, so I don't intend to re-describe those projects. I just ask for maybe a motion to approve the projects to continue on. And with that, I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll refer you to the attachment notebook. This is where all the projects are, and I will briefly describe these projects. So the first project under tab A of the attachment notebook is the cloud seeding in the Medicine Bow and Sierra Mountain Ranges 2021-2022 season. And the proposed budget for this project is $728,000. There was a question yesterday about the cost per acre foot. We spent some time and calculated that. So Julie has a brief description on what the cost per acre foot should be with corrected numbers. So Julie, if you're on, please go ahead and explain what you did.
I am. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity to address the cost per acre foot in this recommendation for airborne seeding over the Medicine Bow and Sierra Madres mountain ranges. The numbers that are displayed in the recommendation are referenced from the design study that was completed about 2 or 3 years ago. now that we've had a good 2 full seasons of airborne cloud seeding, our actual operations have allowed us to have better data to work with. So we took the time last night to recalculate the cost per acre foot based on more yield as compared to what was discussed in the design study. And that was the 12,500 acre feet of additional spring runoff. That was the number as referenced in the design study. The reason that we expect more yield is due to a few things. Number one, we have a larger aircraft that we're using in our operational program. It's mostly for safety reasons. It's better to have this larger aircraft. It has more power. It's better for the type of terrain for those 2 mountain ranges. And it's much better for the icing conditions that exist over those mountain ranges during winter weather. This larger aircraft also has a higher fuel capacity, which allows it to have longer flight times and more seating opportunities. And also our operational season is longer as compared to the what was a parameter in the study. We usually go earlier in November, starting this year, we started November 1st. And we also have the flexibility to go longer into April if we need to. Another reason for more yield is that more flares are used for actual operations as compared to the number of flares that were set in the parameters for the study. So basically the on the ground data that we've been seeing for our operations has exceeded what's been shown in the study. And so that is why we expect to get more yield in acre feet every spring. So the way the calculation works out is the additional yield in spring runoff is actually closer to 30,000 acre feet between April and July, as compared to that 12,000 acre foot number, which calculates to approximately 23 or 24 dollars per acre foot of water. So hopefully that helps to answer your question, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Co-Chairman. Please let me know if there's any other questions.
Any other questions for Julie on cloud seeding?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Julie, on those assumptions, what are we doing to follow up to monitor the, because everything you said is just based on assumptions, larger aircraft, larger flight time. So are we collecting any data to validate that, to see if we're actually getting the 30,000? The question I have is that assumptions based on the same number of seedable events? Because what really drives water yield is whether you have enough events to be able to seed. I mean, that's if you don't have snow, if you don't have clouds, you don't have the opportunity and all the right conditions. So those 2 issues, are we doing any following up monitoring or any data collection to verify that these assumptions are actually going to yield more water? And how does the seedable events come into that calculation?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman. So the follow-up is the estimated yield is really analyzed through hydrological modeling. So that is where the accuracy of those numbers come from. And in the design study that was done a couple of years ago, the research parameters that are used for these types of studies are more conservative and a bit more stringent than actual operations. So you had mentioned that it really does depend on the number of events and the amount of opportunity. In a research criteria capacity, the analysis would be based on less opportunity, because in operations, there are more opportunity to seed than we would expect to see in the research. The model analysis that were done they did 2 different model analysis, which is where those numbers came up. So as far as the follow-up, we have not really done any follow-up to validate the additional stream flow, but based on what we've seen in our operations so far, we're doing more seeding than what was used for parameters in the research study. And then also using the seeding effect percentages. And then your second question, can you remind me of your second question?
No, I think you hit it. I mean, I'm always concerned. I mean, we deal with models all the time, and it's only as good as the assumptions that you put into the model. And I can get a model to tell me anything I want based on the data that I put into it. And so I always worry about, especially when we're talking $750,000 a year here, predicated on assumptions that we're putting in and no follow-up data collection. So I guess the challenge is at some point to go back and verify the model, especially as assumptions and conditions change, new technologies and all that stuff. I just think that as part of this whole program, we need a constant ability to go back and reassess the validity of the assumptions that were put into the model. I remember one of the presentations on this that they really showed that at least we're working with the ground-based generators, we're only about 1 or 2% effective because of the narrow time frame you can actually seed those clouds and have effective precipitation. I think that was part of the justification to go into airborne operations, was to try to be more responsive to those conditions. But I just worry about too many models and too many assumptions without a periodic check. So just as an FYI, it would be good to take that back to the committee and see what their recommendations are on following up with on-the-ground monitoring of the efficacy of the program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that comment, and I agree with you. I also wanted to reiterate that the study was based on an aircraft that was much smaller, and so the fact that the aircraft that we're using, which is a King Air B200, has the ability to fly for longer hours. This in the study, the aircraft had the ability to fly for 2 to 4 hours, and the aircraft we have right now can fly up to 6. And we're using almost 10 times more flares when we seed in certain areas of the mountain range. So just based on how our operations have been going compared to what they used in the research, that's why I think it's been fair to say that we have more acre feet expected in the springtime. But thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question for Julie. I'm not sure she could answer it, but I'd like to at least ask it. Julie, has anybody looked at the potential impacts on that extra moisture in those fire-ridden areas up there?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I apologize. I was on mute. So we have had, so are you talking about over the Mullen burn scar?
Yes.
So we have had a technical advisory team meeting a couple weeks ago, and that included Forest Service, Game and Fish, State Engineer's Office, Bureau of Rec, State Land, State Forestry. Hopefully I'm not forgetting any, DEQ, to discuss what the impacts might be if we were to seed over the burn scar. And so just so you know, right now we're suspended over the entire Medicine Bow Mountain Range because we're waiting for Dave Gloss and his team to summarize the results of their burn area emergency response report. And so there have been concerns about extra moisture in that area from a lot of different agencies. One of the things that the Forest Service hydrologist did mention, and this was also mentioned by another entity, I forget who, was that snow melt is really not the biggest concern when it comes to erosion over the burn scar. It's actually, the threat is really higher when you're talking about spring thunderstorms and the heavy rainfall. So, but it doesn't mean that we should negate that fact that there could potentially be more snowpack and more runoff. But it sounds like that the higher risk is really with those thunderstorms and those downpours that can happen in the spring versus that incremental runoff.
Yes, Julie, I was more concerned with that when the collection systems start collecting, it's water, that you get a lot of that ash and stuff coming into the treatment facilities and overload those facilities at that time if you had an excessive amount of moisture coming from those collection systems. But it sounds like they're probably looking at that and determining on whether or not to disable those collection systems for a few months, or I suppose some other solution.
Yes, and my understanding is that a lot of the work with that emergency report has been completed, but I think that they're still kind of looking at all of the impacts right now. That's all I know about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cayley. Senator Hicks? No. So thanks, Julie. You're very clear and concise. If we don't cloud seed, do we get any return on money, or do they just go to other ranges? How does that work?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just reiterate your question. If we do not seed over the Medicine Bow Mountains, is that what your question is?
Yes.
So a little bit of background on that. We have one aircraft, 2 mountain ranges. These 2 mountain ranges are very, oftentimes when there is a great opportunity to seed one, there's also a great opportunity to seed the other. So in a perfect world, we would have 2 aircrafts that would be able to seed both mountain ranges at the same time. Because we have one, we usually have to pick the better opportunity. So to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, there would be probably more opportunity to seed the Sierra Madres with suspension over the Medicine Bow Mountains. But also, as Director Gebhardt mentioned yesterday, we're still in discussion with Forest Service and the other state agencies on there is a possibility to entertain the option of still being able to seed the northern part of the Medicine Bow Mountains without any type of effect over the burn scar. So we're hoping to be able to make that decision in a week or two when we get more information.
Thank you. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Julie, a question on the contract. Is that based on the maximum number of potential seedable events, or is it just a fixed price? I've looked back at the data. Some years it's 50% less or even greater number of times that they would fly. It's all based on those number of seedable events. So is our contract based on number of times they fly, or is it just a fixed contract?
Mr. Chairman, it is just a fixed contract. It is not defined by the number of events that they can seed. They have available money to seed as many opportunities as they can within our budget.
And do we know what that is, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, last year we had about 24 or 25 seeding events between the Medicine Bow, the Sierra Madres, and we had 1 flight over the Laramie Range before we had to suspend due to Laprelle. So last year it was about 24, 25 flights fit into our budget. The year before, I think it was 2022. So that's about generally the number of flights that we're getting based on our project cost. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just curious because sometimes later in the year that, not all events are equal.
Right.
I remember a few years ago, we actually suspended operations when we were at 300% of normal snowpack. So do we know, based on the research and then the practical application, what's the maximum number of probable events that we've had in the 10 years we've been doing this, or whatever that time frame is?
So for our airborne project, we're starting season 3 right now. So we've only had 2 winters to look at the numbers of flights. And so it's always been between 20, and then it was 24 or 25 last year. We do have a suspension criteria, just like we do in the Wind River mountain range, where we're watching the snowpack and the snow water equivalent throughout the entire season. And like you had mentioned, we did have to suspend operations in the winds. I believe it was 2014 or 16, because the snowpack got to a certain, it's 140%, depending on the number of SNOTEL sites that we're watching. So we're always watching for that criteria if we do need to suspend our operations based on the snow water equivalent. And we have SNOTEL sites in both the Sierra Madres and the Medicine Bows that we're watching throughout the year. It can get close, especially in March and early April, depending on the type of winter that we've had. But generally, we're looking at, over the past 2 years, we've had between 20 and 24 flights total.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Any more discussion for Julie or on cloud seeding? Hearing none. Moving on to the next item. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next project is cloud seeding in the Wind River Mountain Range 2021-2022 season. This is the ground-based program. The proposed budget is $215,000. This is the same program essentially as it was last year. We've got the same funding split with our partners. We've got partners in the lower basins. We've got M&I partners. And the proposed budget this year is $15,000 more than it was last year. That includes some inflation, as well as moving 2 of the generators. And this is a funding split of 37% for Wyoming and 63% for the remaining funding partners. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but I'll open up for questions.
Any questions about the cloud seeding in the Wind Rivers? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item.
Mr. Chairman, the next project is the Lander Well and Transmission Pipeline 2021 project. Kevin mentioned this in his closing project closeout memo. This project has a proposed budget of $884,400. It is a 67% grant. As Kevin mentioned, this is completing the previously drilled wells, some piping, chlorination, and tying into the existing system. This will increase their supply by about 1.6 MGD, or about 1,100 gallons a minute. I don't know if we have participants on the line, if they'd like to say anything. Regine or Lance, is there anything you would want to add? And if not, we can just carry on, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
Okay. The next project is under tab D, Northwest Rural Water System Improvements 2021. This project is essentially upsizing a pump station, installing 2 tanks, and 2,000 foot of 12-inch transmission pipeline. This is to meet growing demand in a portion of the rural system. The proposed budget for this project is $1,413,700, and that is a 67% grant. Are there any questions or comments on that?
Hearing none, I guess we move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next project in this grant is the Torrington Well Connection 2021 project. If you remember, we discussed this project yesterday. And I do anticipate that we've got some participants from the city of Torrington. So if they want to jump on and unmute themselves, I will set it up. If you remember correctly, we reduced the original application by about $540,000. The request was for some electrical upgrades. They were non-eligible to our program. So the proposed recommended budget that we're recommending right now is for $389,270 to install transmission pipeline for the most part. And I'll hang on a second in case representatives from Torrington want to say anything.
We do have some folks on the line from Torrington. If you're joining by phone, you may need to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Good morning, this is Tom Troxel, Water Department.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. I'm here for any questions if there is any. I believe Jeff is having a problem getting his audio going, but I see he was trying to get on the line. He's our city engineer.
Does anyone have questions for Tom or the discussion or comments about the Torrington well? Hearing none, I'll have Director Gephardt go again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know if we want, this is one block of projects. These are the account 1 level 3 projects. We're getting ready to enter into the level 3 amendments. So maybe we'll just continue into that and then make a motion to accept all the level 3 projects. So the next project is the Arapahoe Water Supply Project. This was a 2016 appropriation. This has been going on, mostly being held up by easements. And so this is a time extension only request. And I would open up for any questions. And I do believe that we have Lola Wallowing Bowl if there are any questions for her as well. So any questions on the Arapahoe Water Supply Project? Mr. Chairman, as we talked about Arapahoe, we could also transition into the Ethity Water Supply Project. I do believe Lola Wallowing Bowl may be on the line for this one if there are questions in it. But again, this is another time extension. This is a 2010 appropriation. This is for a 2-year time extension. Again, a majority of the holdup on this has been easement. So with both of those.
Well, we've got a Carol Lynn. I'm not sure what project she's on. And I think Anna McClure is for.
Jody, can you mute, please? Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No worries.
I don't believe I've heard any questions or comments on either of those projects. It's okay, I'll continue on.
Yes.
Next project is the small water program for new development. As we discussed yesterday, we're recommending a budget of $1 million. And as you know, the process will continue to play out as to what the specific projects are. But the request, or the director recommendation is for $1 million for the small water program new development.
Any questions from the commission on small water project? Hearing none, back to you, Director Gephardt.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be appropriate for a motion to be made for level 3, water development account 1, level 3 projects.
Could we have a motion on level 3 projects?
This is Mark, so moved. So moved by Mark.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So it was moved by Commissioner Cott and seconded by Commissioner Yankee that we accept the level 3 projects. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Back to you, Director Gephardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next block of projects are level 2 projects. As I mentioned, these have been discussed previously. So my recommendation would be to just have me read off the project titles. If there's anything that anybody wants to pull out and have further discussion on, we could. Otherwise, we could approve the block. This first block for level 2 projects in water development account 1 are the Bighorn Regional Transmission Project, the Byron Rural Water System, Gillette Water System Improvements, the Little Snake River Valley Water Supply Phase 2. This total for this block of projects is $586,000. And it'd be probably be appropriate to make a motion on that.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Consultants have been selected on all these projects.
Thank you. Any discussion on the level 2 projects? Anybody have a conflict of interest or a need to separate out any of those projects? Hearing none. Any discussion on any of them? So I guess we would like to get a motion on level 2 projects.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Purcell. I would move approval of the level 2 projects, and I would remind the commission that we have done the consultant selection here and that the amounts you see are based on accepted proposal amounts.
Moved by Commissioner Purcell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Kaylee to accept the level 2 projects. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, if any? Hearing none, motion carries. We will move to level 1 projects, back to Director Gephardt.
Mr. Chairman, this block of projects includes the Hoback River Watershed Study, Lander Water Master Plan, Nordic Branches Master Plan, Upton Water Master Plan, Wheatland Water Master Plan, and following the discussion yesterday, the Lake Hattie Full Utilization Study. That has a to be determined amount, as you recall from the discussion yesterday. We just recommend that we continue to develop the scope as we discussed. So the total amount for this block, with the exception of the Lake Hattie, is $826,000. Consultants have been selected for all of the projects excluding Lake Hattie. And these numbers are the result of the consultant selection and the actual prices provided by the consultants. So I think we could approve this block or have discussion on any items.
Any discussion, or does anyone have a conflict of interest where they need to separate any of these out? Hearing none, could we have a motion on level 1 projects?
I make a motion, Commissioner Glick, for approving the level 1 recommendations.
We have a motion by Commissioner Glick. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second by Commissioner Yankee to approve level 1 projects, including Lake Hattie, as it is written on our agendas. Everybody okay with that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on, Director Gephardt to the UW Water Research.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the last two items under Water Development Account 1 are the University of Wyoming Water Research Program. Mr. Greg Kerr provided those projects yesterday. And also under this block is the transfer from Water Development Account 1 to Water Development Account 2 in the amount of $7.5 million. I'd be happy to answer any questions or carry on with the motion.
Any discussion on water research, UW Water Research, or the transfer of money to our account 3? Hearing none, could we have a motion on accepting those two items?
This is Commissioner Purcell. I would move approval of the proposed budget for the UW Water Research Program, and I would, in the same motion, approve the transfer from Water Development Account 1 to Water Development Account 2, the amount of $7.5 million.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Purcell, for making that motion and making it clear. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Purcell and a second by Commissioner Wagner. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We would go back to Director Gephardt on level 2 projects, some amendments.
Mr. Chairman, it's okay. I might talk just because of the order of the attachment notebook. I'll talk about Water Development Account 3 projects. We've got 4 projects. These are all time extension onlys. The first one is the Clear Creek storage. The intent of this extension is to keep the consultant on board through NEPA and assist with the NEPA process as well as any design needs. The next project is the Fontenelle Dam and Outlet Works Infrastructure Completion Project. This is time extension. We've got an existing budget of $750,000. If you remember from previous conversations, Bureau of Reclamation is working on a risk assessment, and this just keeps that risk assessment continuing and allowing them to finish up their assessment. The next extension would be for the Glendo Reservoir Full Utilization Project. There's an existing budget of $750,000. This recommendation is to extend the reversion date by 3 years. The reason we're extending this is there's some congressional bill that would potentially help us in reauthorizing that flood storage. So our desire is to continue this project. In the event that that does get passed, it may change the outcome of that study. So we're recommending to keep this project open. And then the final project under this block is a time extension for the Alkali Creek Reservoir Project, Millwood River Storage Project. Continuing on with NEPA and design, we've got a remaining budget of $4 million. This is an extension to the reversion date of 3 years. Mr. Chairman, that's it for this block. I'd be happy to answer any questions or listen for a motion.
Thank you, Director Gephardt. Is there any discussion on these level 2 projects, time extensions for each one, it appears? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept these time extensions?
This is Clinton Glick, Commissioner Glick. I'll make a motion that we accept these time extensions.
We have a motion by Commissioner Glick. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Glick and a second by Commissioner Little and Yankee to accept these time extensions on these level 2 projects. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Director Gephardt, you're on to rehabilitation.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Briefly describe the level 3 projects as a block. The first one we discussed yesterday was the Interstate Irrigation Reservoir Irrigation District improvements. If you remember correctly, we are recommending that the first phase of the project be funded. The funding is $2,827,400, and that's at a 67% grant. The remaining 33% is other funding by the district. I think we discussed this well enough yesterday. Unless there are any questions, I'll just continue on to the next project, which is the Salt Creek Transmission Pipeline Project. Again, we discussed this project yesterday. The recommendation for this is to fund at 67% of the project cost for a total project proposed budget of $7,316,400. Again, this is for a 7-mile transmission pipeline. And if you remember correctly, or if you remember from the discussion yesterday, this is one that we're going to do some due diligence and look for some potential cost savings on the project. The next project under this block is the Shoshone Irrigation District Improvements 2021 project. This is a 100% material only grant project in the amount of $240,000. This is a replacement of some transite pipe for a lateral and replacement of 2 drop structures, number 30 and 31 on the Garland Canal. The last project under this block is the Sidon Irrigation District Rehab 2021. This also is a material only project with a proposed budget of $576,000. This is to replace multiple gates and slide gates, measuring at some of the diversion structures, spills, and turnouts. Mr. Chairman, that is it for that block of projects. If there are questions, I do believe we may have some representatives if needed.
Does anyone have questions or any further discussion on these level 3 projects?
We do have a few sponsors on the line. If you would like to participate at all, you're more than welcome to.
Please unmute yourself if you're trying to say something.
This is Salt Creek Joint Powers. We're happy to answer any questions if anybody has some.
This is Trent Reed with Shoshone Irrigation District. I am available for any questions if you guys have them as well.
And this is Brian Andrew with Interstate Irrigation and Reservoir Irrigation District.
Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments for the representatives of these projects?
This is Commissioner Glick. I would just like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I kind of like these materials only, funding these materials only projects. I think that's a good deal. That's pretty much what I had to say. I just, I think that those types of projects allow for the people on the ground to work with people in their area. So if there's any like repairs or anything, a lot of the stuff is right there locally, so that they don't have to bring somebody else in again to try to repair that's maybe not there, or like a general contractor that came in and brought their stuff in from a different area. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
It's a great comment, Commissioner Glick. I also am in favor of materials only and know that there are capable people that can install it and have a vested interest in it to do it right. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Chairman Lancaster.
Go ahead, Senator Hicks.
Yeah, maybe if Director Gephardt could just review for us, for my edification at least, what are the eligible costs for materials only? And in the budget, it shows this is roughly a 50-50. So how does the office go about making the determination that those eligible costs that they're using to match water development are reasonable? If there's 10,000 cubic yards of backfill material and they're going to do the work on that, how do we determine if they're charging us $20 a cubic yard for backfill or whatever, $2, $20? How do we determine that's a reasonable price? Or do we even go through that exercise?
Mr. Chairman, I brought Brian Clarkin in.
Mr. Chairman, on the materials only projects, those projects are actually, the materials are actually bid. And so it goes to the low bidder for the materials. And then we pay based on invoiced materials. So the actual, then we look at that compared to the actual bids to make sure that those correspond. But again, everything's based on a low bid. Those projects would be typically, they're advertised just like our normal projects, and there's an advertisement period that they go through, and it's a public advertisement, and then again have a typical bid opening and then an award.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't know that we fully vet the construction component of it, but I think it's pretty standard that construction is considerably more than the materials of these construction projects. So I guess to answer your question, I don't know that we do a deep investigation of that, but it's generally assumed that construction is considerably more than material costs.
So just to follow up, so Brian, this would be when you say you bid it, you mean you bid the materials only. You're not getting an estimated bid for the project, just the materials, correct?
That's correct. In the applications, typically the sponsor will put together their estimate for what their component for the installation cost would be. And again, it's an estimate. It's their best estimate. And to your point, no, we don't do a detailed investigation to verify that amount.
All right. Well, that's the question I had. Thank you.
Good question. We ready to get a motion on that? I've lost track of where I'm at.
Ready for a motion.
Could we have a motion on the materials only level 3 projects?
It'd be all for the level 3 projects for water development account 2.
Thank you.
Make a motion. This is Commissioner Glick, that we accept the recommendations of on the Water Development Office for the level 3 projects.
Second, Purcell.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Glick and a second by Commissioner Purcell to accept these projects. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Back to you, Director Gephardt, for the
Mr.
next item.
Thank you. The next block are level 2 projects amendments. The first amendment is the small water program for rehabilitation. Our recommendation is for $500,000 for the small water program. And then the second one that we discussed yesterday as well is the sponsor contingency account, requesting funding of $1.5 million for that sponsor contingency account. And be happy to have any discussion. If anybody would like to see the transfer from water development account 1 to 2, the recommendation is not in the book, but I could pull it up on screen if anybody would like to see that.
Any comments or discussion on these two amendments? Hearing none. We're ready for a motion on that. Anyone like to make a motion on accepting those amendments?
This is Commissioner Cont. I so moved.
Moved by
Commissioner Wagner,
Commissioner
second.
Scott and seconded by Commissioner Wagner. All in favor? All in favor say yes? Or
Yes.
aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Sorry, any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We're down to level
Mr.
2,
Chairman.
the Lander ditches.
Yes,
Director
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. There was quite a bit of discussion on this yesterday. The director's recommendation for this project is to change the presented recommendation from a level 1 or from a level 2 to a level 1. Maintain the existing budget, maintain the selected consultant. And then we did put language in the recommendation, and it states that the contract execution is contingent upon the City of Lander and the Dickinson Creek Ditch Company's concurrence on tasks as defined in the final scope. Mr. Chairman, I do anticipate that we've got some public participation on this, and if you are on, please unmute and offer any comments.
Director Gebhardt, we do have a few participants on for this one.
Director, this is Regine Sturby-Fossen, City of Lander.
Good morning.
Good morning. As I mentioned yesterday, the City of Lander is in full support of the level 1 transition as proposed, and we're excited to go ahead and work with all our stakeholders on this level 1 project.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I also,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I also see Senator Case and Mr. Stewart online. Is there anything you guys would like to add?
Yes, Director, this is Jeb Stewart. I have no other further comments other than, yeah, we appreciate that additional language and support it as well. And so there was a question yesterday with regard to changing this from level 2 to level 1. It was suggested that perhaps the ditch company should be the sponsor for this. So what was the decision of that question?
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to answer that. The reason it's going to a level 1 is because the ownership is in question. And because the statutes, the using public money for private entities is questionable. However, with the level 1 study through water development, we do not have to have a public sponsor. So moving it to a level 1 basically removes that concern for us. But the intent is typically, if with these projects we get a resolution from multiple people, we don't have that. It's my understanding that we don't have a formally organized district. So this is kind of a compromise to that, is to allow the stakeholder participation and also keep the project going to try to figure out what the ownership is and everything else in the study.
Thank you for that, Mr. Director. So then the City of Lander is continuing as being the sole sponsor.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. They would be the sponsor, but we would have to get concurrence from the ditch company to execute a contract. I'd also point out that these studies are performed solely by water development. These are under our purview. We contract with the consultant, and we develop the scope of work and approve all the contracts. So it's our contract with the consultant to do the work. And I did see that Senator Case had his hand up too. Go ahead, Mr. Case.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. I want to express the support of the Dickinson Creek Company for working with the city to figure out the scope of this study. We certainly look forward to that. With regard to the issue of ownership, I'm kind of thinking everybody's making too much out of that. The ditches are, a lot of them are on private land, absolutely. But the benefits of the storm drainage and potential elimination of groundwater, those are public benefits. And I think we have to kind of look at it that way. When you get into the water rights, I think that is where there are really private issues there that are going to take a lot of thinking about and might run afoul of Article 16, Section 6. So thank you very much. I appreciate what you've done and look forward to working with the city.
Mr. Chairman, I see that Senator Driscoll has his hand up.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick response to Senator Case is, unfortunately, you haven't been on the committee, and we've been through this issue with ditches on private lands steady for the last 4 years. It's just been a constant battle of whether it was admissible or not. And we've gone both ways. The AG has a ruling that I don't think we've been totally privy to. Senator Hicks and I tried to run a bill several years ago to make part of it legal, and it's still a very much gray area. We agree with you fully, or at least I do, that a ditch across private land is without a doubt a benefit if it's delivering state of Wyoming water onto ground for beneficial use. But that has not always been the case of the commission, nor of the final decision that's been made. So that's one of the things that we probably still, once again, ought to get cleaned up at some point in time, because this issue comes up 3 or 4 times a year. So I appreciate your patience, and it's been a grave frustration to us, because many of the smaller irrigation districts and ditch canals in the state are currently being excluded from being able to have projects because of the very issue that you brought up. And your logic is the same as ours has been. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Driscoll.
Any other discussion or comments on this Lander project?
This is Commissioner Glick.
Go ahead.
You know, and moving forward with this project, I think it's a good project where it would help both the city and the ditch district. I know that a lot of the water rights are, we don't want to lose them. And I think that the access will be there, so the water rights shouldn't be lost. It's so I'm for this project to move forward. I think that it is providing a beneficial use for people at the tail end of the lander ditches. I know there's some fields out there that utilize the water for agriculture. That's pretty much my comment. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that I am for this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Glick. This is going to open new opportunities, and we're going to learn a lot about private ditch and stormwater that runs in ditches and everything else. I think it was a great discussion yesterday. I think it opens up some good possibilities for the future. Any other discussions on the Lander ditch rehabilitation?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we accept the director's recommendation and move the Lander ditches rehabilitation project from a level 2 to a level 1.
We have a motion by Commissioner Yankee to make this move. Do we have a second?
Okay.
And we have a second by Commissioner Glick. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Did I get the second right on that one, or was that Commissioner Cott? Maybe it doesn't matter. It's Commissioner Cott and Commissioner Glick.
I think it was Glick.
This is going to be a good one going forward. Let's see. Where did I get in the motion? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have a question for you. Do we have to add that we keep the same budget?
Director Gephardt, maybe that's a question for you.
I didn't hear the question completely. I'm sorry.
Do we have to add that we keep the same budget?
No, I don't think we do. It's in the recommendation. I think we'll be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Good. We move to the next item, which is project amendment on LaPrelle.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and I'll combine the next two, or the final two projects. The first one is an amendment for level 1 projects. We discussed this yesterday, the LaPrelle irrigation dam rehab. At this point, it's to be determined. I think we vetted that pretty well yesterday. The final project is a Highland Irrigation District Master Plan. Again, consultant is selected for this project. The price is reflected is their cost to do the project. So unless there are any questions, I would turn it back to you for a motion.
Any questions on these final two projects? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept them?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Wagner.
Commissioner Purcell, second.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner moved that we accept these two projects, the LaPrelle and Highland, and seconded by Commissioner Purcell. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, if any? Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, The next item on the agenda is item 12, other items requiring commission action. We typically put these on in case something comes up during the meeting that needs an action, but I don't believe we have anything, so we can skip that one. And then the next one, if it's all right, is the director's comments. And I do just have one comment to make. I would like to thank Senator Anselmi Dalton, Senator Moniz, and Representative Blake. I understand this is your last meeting, but I really appreciate working with you all and the support that you've given the program. So I just want to say thank you and best wishes moving on.
Thank you, Director Gephardt. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Director. We've enjoyed working with you. Done a good job.
Thank you.
Same here, Director. I just want to commend you and your staff. Your staff has been fantastic. The service they give to the state of Wyoming is top notch. And thank you so much for everything you do for our state.
And I echo Representative Blake's comments. The staff is wonderful, and the whole committee has been fun. I've learned a lot, and it's been great. So thank you.
Thank you all. Mr. Chairman, I believe the final thing before we adjourn is the future meeting schedule. That did not make the notebook. I can share it briefly with, if I push the right button, I can.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I think he's going to talk to us about next year. I kind of need a update.
December.
I kind of need to know when we're meeting this next coming December.
Okay.
So what we will do, Barry is digging into his little magic book. This thing is amazing. 9th and 10th, December 9th and 10th is the December meeting. And what I will do is I'll ask Riley to make sure to email the draft agenda for next year out so that everybody has that, and we can discuss it in more depth in December if we choose to. Mr. Chairman, I thank you. I'm done. I'll shut up, quit talking, and let you adjourn the meeting unless there's other business you need to do.
I'm just a little bit emotionally touched that we're losing some members of Select Water. I have learned so much and been so appreciative of their dedication and their fun personalities. And Representative Blake, will miss your jovialness and your positivity. And each one of you have gifts and characteristics that have added and done great things for the state of Wyoming and for your individual areas. I'm just so impressed with the quality of people that I've met on water development and in the legislature. So thank you all so much for taking time out of your schedules to do the business of the state, even though it's on Zoom and it's a little awkward, especially when you got a chairman like me that's a little bit nervous and jumping all over the place. I just want to thank everybody for all your good, all the good you do. Okay, I'll get off that, take a deep breath, and
You're here. It was well said.
Proud to be a Wyomingite. Okay, so the next, do we have any more discussion? Does anybody like to say anything before we move on?
I'd like to thank all of the Select Water Committee, myself, and the ones that we're losing. I'm sure hate to see you go. Mr. Blake, we're going to miss your singing. I just wanted to say that, we hate to see you go, and I did learn a lot from you. But Chairman Lancaster was talking there. I sure hope that, we get to see each other sometime soon. I know you'll be around, I'll be around. We can run into each other, we'll sit down and talk. Thank you for all your service for our whole state and the reservation. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion?
Thank you, Commissioner Glick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we, anyone
Mr.
else
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
If you're ready, I would be happy to move adjournment. This is Commissioner Purcell.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Purcell to adjourn this meeting and a second from Commissioner Cayley or Commissioner Wagner. Was slow on the draw. I got this stuff in my eyes and I can't see my screen anymore.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would also move that the Select Water Committee is now adjourned.
So we've had a motion that we adjourn and a second, and the motion carries.
We'll see you guys in December.
Very good.